So I'm here with Laurence Holmes. I could list off all the things you do, but let's have you do it instead. So Score.
Host of The Score, noon to 2, Monday through Friday. I host the Loho Daily podcast, which I do 5 days a week. It's pretty fun. I have the House of L podcast, which is more journalism and media driven. I'm the host of the Bears postgame. Wait, I can't say Bears postgame. Our football after show on NBC Sports Chicago. I'm an adjunct professor at DePaul University.
Wait, and you just got a master's degree, I saw?
Yes, I just graduated from the University of Alabama with my master's degree in journalism. Roll Tide!
You're allowed to say that now.
I am.
What's a typical day like for you?
Well, it used to be a lot more stressful when I was doing school, and my schedule flipped because I was on.
Were you like jetting to Alabama?
No, but I visited the campus 6 times.
That's a lot.
Yeah, in 2 years.
2-year program?
I went down to Tuscaloosa 6 times, and I really, really loved it. Basically, what a day I guess the days start the night before now. Like that's
right.
The way that I'm looking at it. So it's watching everything, like watching Cubs or White Sox or Bulls or Blackhawks or whatever, getting my notes together for what I want to do, going to sleep, and then now the day, I'm having to adjust now. Being on at noon after 10 years of being on at 6 p.m.
Right.
It's a whole different thing because you were acting more as a preview than a review. It's a little difficult to do, well, let's talk about the game that happened the night before when it was literally 24 hours.
And sometimes at night you're talking about a game or a team that's playing at that moment.
Correct.
And maybe they're bumping you.
Yeah, a lot of times I ended up getting bumped. But now it's a little hectic, and I think that I seem to thrive with the chaos of it, where I usually like to get the podcast done before the radio show.
Oh, okay.
Because I am useless. I'm actually surprised because we're recording like after my show.
Right.
I'm pretty useless after the show is done.
So you might still be useless. We did just start the interview. We haven't
It's
determined
true.
if you're useless or not. So do a lot of people who don't really know how the business works think that you just work 2 hours a day?
Yeah.
A lot of people think you just show up.
Yeah. It happens in sports all the time where people like, oh, well, you just roll in and do the show. Well, not if you want to be good.
Right.
Like if you want to be good, you're watching, you're reading everything, you're throwing.
You're maybe working with your team to line up guests.
Yeah, you're always trying to figure out your list. I'm kind of a geek. So,
you're kind of a self-proclaimed geek.
but I'm also like a radio geek. So anything that might end up coming up in conversation, I want to try and cover, which is impossible to do, but I still find myself doing it. Like you never know where you're going to get inspiration. I'll give you a perfect example. I haven't told my EP about this, but I want anytime.
Well, for those of us who don't know lingo.
Executive producer, Tony Gill, who's a very brilliant young producer. I grew up in Chicago, so I grew up on house music. And my brother is a very famous house music producer. And there's this song by Kraftwerk called "It's More Fun to Compute." It's more fun to compute. And I told Tony to dig it up because I wanted to use it. Tony's 26.
He isn't.
He was like, what is this?
He wrote craft with a C, Googled it, spelled it wrong.
Yes, and he's like, what, old man, hey grandpa, what are you doing with the sound of the show? But it's a fun little thing that I like that makes me happy.
So the guy that sometimes hosts these, Ethan, until I bump him out because he couldn't be here today, so I'm doing it, and I'll maybe do better than him, I don't know. But he's very young. He's our resident millennial, and we shot a video a couple months ago at the SNL exhibit. I was like, dude, they're gonna let us use the Wayne's World set. He's
no.
What's Wayne's World? I was like, what's Wayne's World? So I wouldn't expect anybody to know Kraftwerk. I wouldn't know that song by them, but yeah, there's a dividing line. And it's usually people who were born after The Chronic came out in '92.
Correct.
And when was Tony born?
Tony was born 93.
So post-Chronic, that's my dividing line.
It's a good dividing line.
I could talk to you if you're pre-Chronic, and I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin with 3,500 people. We could really relate to The Chronic. I mean, we knew what was going on Crenshaw.
Okay, so let me just add to that. So when The Chronic comes out, I'm finishing high school, okay? And I remember because they just celebrated the 25th anniversary of Midnight Marauders by A Tribe Called Quest and Into the 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang.
I bought both of those on the BMG. I probably still owe them. I think I still need to buy one more CD.
So you went the BMG route. I was at DePaul at the time. We went to Tower Records.
Oh.
Remember Tuesday nights?
I moved here in 99. Tower Records was kind of like...
Well, Tuesday nights at midnight.
That was when
So Monday night into Tuesday morning, the new releases would come out. And we went like as a gang. Like we left our dorm and walked up Webster or Belden to Tower Records on Belden and Clark so that we could get Enter the Wu-Tang and Midnight Marauders.
And it was everything you dreamed and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when Doggy Style came out, same thing.
93 that was, I believe.
Same thing. We walked to the record store and got the CDs of that stuff.
Yeah.
That Tony has no idea. He has no idea. And I'm sure the person...
I mean, the whole peril of like going to, spend like $27 in Wisconsin, we had Music Box. And, going to spend $27 because there was one song you liked, hoping that the rest of the CD would be like halfway as decent.
Do you remember how hard it was to just get the CDs themselves, like, out of the packaging?
Well, and then they kept them in that big plastic thing, so you couldn't shoplift them. Well, you couldn't shoplift them. There was like the big plastic case that they came in.
And then
you had to take to the counter. Yeah.
They were so shrink wrapped.
When did we turn into grandfathers? When did that happen?
Apparently somewhere in the 2000s we did.
Back in my day.
So cool back then.
I wasn't cool at all, but I thought I was.
That's
I had a mullet. I wore.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I had a full head of hair back in the day. That's why I'm wearing a hat, because I no longer have a full head of hair.
Well, hand me a hat too.
No, you're good.
I'm okay for a couple more years, and then it's gonna be all bad.
People with darker skin complexions, you can rock whatever you want.
It's true.
I look too Aryan if I shave my head.
Can I tell you, I had this conversation.
I guess any Aryan is too Aryan. So anyway.
Way too Aryan.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with Brian Urlacher. So when Brian Urlacher did the hair thing, he came in. I was working at 120 Sports at the time. And I know Brian. I covered his whole career when I was a beat reporter. And we were talking, and I said, you kind of made being bald for white guys cool.
Okay, yeah.
And
you have to look like a badass, though, to pull it off.
Well, and I said that to him, and he said, well, then who made it cool for black guys? And I was
everybody.
And I said to him, I was like, well, let's start with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's what you have to do. And I will go that route at some point. The less up here, the more down here. That's how you keep from looking too Aryan.
That's okay. I feel like there are probably a lot of Aryans that have beards, though.
Sure, but yours is going to be a friendly one.
That's true. But are there friendly Aryans? Probably not.
No.
Okay.
That's not a thing ever.
What year or how old were you when you broke into sports radio?
15
years old.
Yeah. My high school has the highest power high school radio station in the country.
Which high school is that?
1,500 watts, home of Flossmoor High School. Okay? So
home of the
Vikings.
Okay.
Home of the Vikings and home of a big media contingent here in Chicago.
Okay.
So I was classmates with Ben Bradley of Channel 9.
Yeah.
Ben was the news director at the time. I was playing basketball. I shredded my ankle. Like, I destroyed it. And I was in a cast. I was really depressed. My mother said, well, you like talking about sports. They have a radio station. You should go try out.
Thanks, Mom.
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah.
For real. And I remember that Ben, he was giving these tests. And I didn't know Ben that well. I had moved from Roseland. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. We moved specifically for me to go to high school.
Okay.
And I didn't grow up with any of these kids. I didn't know any of them. So I'm trying out to be a newsreader, and this is when me and Ben Bradley became friends. He handed me a script, and I said to him, this is how old we are. You spelled Gorbachev wrong. But that's how Ben and I became friends. And then I started working in sports.
And did he actually spell Gorbachev wrong?
He did.
Okay.
And
you had to go look it up. You couldn't look it up online. You had
he hired me on the spot.
Oh, just because you knew Gorbachev.
He was like, if you actually know how to spell Gorbachev, you're hired.
Can you spell Gorbachev right now?
I could not do it if you paid me.
All right. Well, good. I won't be paying you either way. You're a little bit older than that now, so you've had a lifetime working in sports and sports media. Do you still or has your passion for sports evolved in a way that clearly it has? How has it evolved in a way different than if you would have just maintained being a fan and like going to work somewhere else?
There's a couple different ways that it's different. One, the fan aspect has been beaten out of me in a lot of regards because I spend so much time reporting.
Right.
And when you're reporting, there's the whole no cheering in the press box thing, which has become a little bit more relaxed, which I don't like. But I used to be a huge Bears fan. Like, that was my team. I'm not anymore. I'm just not. I don't have it.
So if Parkey's kick would have...
I would have been happy, but I would have been happy because it would have meant more people listening to my radio show, more people watching my TV show. And financially, it would have been much better for me.
Right.
But I care more about the players. That's what I found. Like, I want players to do well. Like, I want the Bears to do well. I'm just not, I wasn't heartbroken when they lost the way that other people were. There's still some teams that I emote with. I emote with DePaul. That was my first like sports love. There was, can I tell you a DePaul story?
I would love it.
So I do games with Zach Zaidman, who's amazing.
I have a question for you regarding Zach Zaidman.
He's
later.
one of my favorite people ever. I'll tell you an off-camera story that is hilarious.
We'll definitely keep the camera running for that.
But
I might actually know the same story.
it's possible that you know the story. Zach and I are in Louisville. DePaul's just getting rolled. I mean, they're getting
What year is this?
This is 2009?
Okay.
Ish. I want to say they lost the game by 43. In the middle of the game,
It was like a close 43 though.
no, it wasn't.
No.
Dar Tucker, who was this incredible athlete that played at DePaul, did a windmill dunk. And
To cut it to 43?
Correct. And we're just sitting there looking at each other like, We get on the bus, we're rolling with the team. This kid, he couldn't have been older than 8 or 9 years old. He's a Louisville fan. He peeks his head into the bus and he goes, "Hey, DePaul, I hope you get better." He didn't say this as a heckle. He was sincerely concerned about how bad DePaul basketball was.
Was it like a good job, good effort kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked at Zach and I was like, so this is rock bottom. Like, this is...
I think rock bottom would have been if he was heckling you, though. If you would have said, like, you guys suck, that wouldn't have been worse?
No, because that would at least have been rivalry and respect. This was sympathy. This is a 9-year-old giving sympathy to us.
Yeah, that had to be a...
It was a hard moment.
And you guys bounced back, though.
Not really.
No, it hasn't happened? No. You've already, like, talked about a lot of really cool experiences. When someone's like, what's, like, the best or coolest experience you've had in sports media?
Oh, that's easy. My Prince story.
Oh.
That's easy.
You have a Prince story.
Okay, so the Bears are in the Super Bowl down in Miami back in 2007. I got down there 2 days earlier because I was the beat reporter. Zach and I both covered the Bears, so we split the two teams up. I got the Colts, he got the Bears.
Oh, so you flip a coin? How did you determine?
No, well, he's on the broadcast, so he got the Bears.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll go cover Tony Dungy. They were out in Fort Lauderdale. So I had to travel from Fort Lauderdale on the media bus, which was not great. That Friday, like, you're working, and you know how it is when you're in Miami. Like, Miami is its own beast that you have to try and tame. I saw a lot of players on South Beach. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
A lot of players at the...
Both teams?
No, specifically the Bears. And specifically maybe someone that I work with now. Anyway, that's not the Prince story. The Prince story is, so we're delirious from covering football and partying like nonstop.
Yeah.
Friday is the easy day. Friday is, they don't do this anymore, but it used to be you get the two coaches in the morning and that's it. There's no team stuff. There's a couple of NFL things that go on Friday, but you only get the team stuff in the morning, 8:30. So it was Lovey and Tony Dungy. We had gotten our tape, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the rest of this day off. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to drink. I'm going to eat. I'm going to enjoy Miami. I'm walking out of there, and they have the dry erase board of, what's happening today. And you're like, okay, well, here's this press conference. Da, da, da. And it said 1 o'clock, Prince press conference. And I was like, nah, that's not a thing. Prince doesn't do press conferences. That's not happening. So I started talking with folks. I'm like, is Prince gonna be here, like, legitimately? So we're at the convention.
You had a credential, you could do whatever you wanted.
I could go wherever I wanted, except for when you come back, when I was like, okay, I'll play this game. I'm gonna go back to my room, I'm gonna take a nap, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna see the Prince press conference, right? So I come back and they say, look, you can't use the bathrooms. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Prince and his team have commandeered, you can't go near the bathrooms. Like, if you're gonna be in this press conference, they started herding us in to the press conference. So there's about 150 media members there.
From all over the world.
The Prince press conference. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. I'm a huge Prince fan. He's my number one, like my favorite musician ever. So I'm in the room. Prince walks up to the microphone and says,
was he on time?
Yo, yeah, he was very much on time.
I saw him play once and he was like 4 hours late.
He said, contrary to, I'll do my Prince. It's bad, but I'll do it. Contrary to popular belief, I will take your question. So I'm sitting there like, I'm in the back of the room like, that's Prince. So a guy that's standing near me raises his hands. They come bring you the microphone. He starts to ask a question. I'm like, oh no. Prince turns around and starts playing. His whole band is up on stage. He is playing. He plays for 15 minutes, rocks the house, says, see y'all at the Super Bowl, and walks off.
That's amazing.
It was unbelievable.
So that was the first question. He didn't even answer. He just rocked out and left.
There's video of it. Yeah. You can find it.
Was it on the NFL?
Yes. NFL Network, I'm pretty sure has it. I told Charles Tillman about it, and he was like, no. I'm like, yeah. While you guys were getting ready for the Super Bowl, Prince was playing a concert for 150 people. And
so I'm assuming during Prince's performance at the Super Bowl, you were probably in a locker room somewhere?
No.
Oh.
Because it was halftime.
Yeah.
So the media, there's media overflow. So you get pushed outside. So they had us outside, but we were covered. And he started playing, and he's playing Purple Rain, and it starts raining.
I was there. It was epic. I was kind of like hit or miss on Prince at that point just because I didn't have much exposure to him somehow. And I mean, I still get goosebumps.
I talked to players on the Bears, I won't name names, that said that they would have preferred to watch the halftime show than being in the locker room for the 30 minutes.
How about the documentary where they're like, they call him up, they're all concerned. They're like, Prince, it's raining. And he's like, can you make it rain harder? R.I.P. Prince.
Not afraid of it. He's just the best. So, yeah, I'll never forget that. Like, that whole experience was insane.
So you talked about like how tough it is to like plan, and how like you, I think, either had or talked about like you had like your like long. Now it's impossible to plan. Like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow with the way the world works and the way sports media and media in general works. Where do you see yourself? 5 years?
Well, that was part of the reason.
Assuming we still have a functioning republic in 5 years.
That's a great point. It's one of the reasons why I went back to school. Is I don't think that it used to be you could say, okay, in 5 years I want to do this, or I want to be here in 5 years. I don't think you can do that anymore. I think that you can maybe plan out. You can only plan out like the length of your contract, and even that is
right.
So you can maybe plan out 2 or 3 years ahead with the way the industry is changing. And one of the reasons I went back to school is I love teaching. Like, I actually love being in the classroom with my students at DePaul. I think it makes me a better broadcaster the semesters that I'm teaching, because you're going back over some of the the rudimentary stuff that you forget along the way because you're trying to teach them how to be really good broadcasters. I know that I want to teach eventually. So I went and got my master's degree because if I want to teach at the college level, you have to have it. And I didn't want to be in a position of whether I'm done with the industry or the industry is done with me,
right.
which is more likely, that then the clock starts. And then I have 2 years to get a master's degree while I don't have a job.
Right.
So I wanted to prepare for that because it's changing weekly. You know what and I think that we're seeing a consolidation of media that's a little terrifying, that at some point it'll just end up being ESPN, Comcast, Sinclair. Like those will be the three places where you have to go. And as you get closer and closer to monopoly, the more and more dangerous it is. Sorry, I kind of took this interview in a weird,
it's okay.
In a weird direction, but it's kind of how I feel, and that's it was spurred on by the industry being as volatile as it is, and I just wanted to make sure that I was ahead of the game in some respect. Like I'll miss if I'm not doing radio. I love radio, TV I like, radio I love. If I'm not doing radio or podcasting, and now I've kind of built House of L so that can't be taken away from me. Mm-hmm. So I'll have a place to do it, but in the traditional sense of how all of us grow up wanting to be on the radio or being on ESPN, I think those are really hard to plan now. I think that's over.
So how do you advise, your students are oftentimes aspiring media folks. How do you advise them?
One of the things that I talk to them about is making sure that you have an opportunity now that I didn't have. I mean, I had it. You know, you could do your talk show into your cassette tapes back in the day and shop that as a demo. Now, there's enough bandwidth for everybody. So these students can create a podcast or what you guys are doing here with the Heckler. They can create this and they can work on how they look on camera, what they sound like, their whole persona on the air. They now have a chance to do that and then shop something that looks professional to a corporation or a radio station or TV station. Like those, I think that's really valuable.
Or they can build a brand on their own.
Or they can do their own thing.
Yeah. So I've sort of gathered that your social media presence has kind of evolved over time. You seem to spend a little more time on some outlets than others.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of annoying things happening to you, either on social media or in person?
I've developed some anxiety over being in public.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm working through that. I had an incident. I have season tickets for the White Sox. So my wife and I go to the White Sox, and I'm excited because I have 4 tickets, and it's just the 2 of us. So there's going to be room for us to be spread out.
Sure.
My wife goes and gets something to eat, and this guy just rolled up and was like, "Hey, I love the show. Can I watch an inning with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, okay."
Was it this season?
Yeah, this happened a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And I'm just sitting there praying. He's very nice, but it's still off-putting.
Well, it's like after you get to a certain point, what's there left to talk about?
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And I'm just waiting for Mel to come back because I know that she said that she said this at Sox Fest a couple years ago that men respond to me the way that they respond to a girl at the bar. That they're kind of hovering.
Sure. Yeah.
Waiting for their opportunity to jump in. So I've developed a little bit of anxiety in that regard, but I'm trying to get over it because I think it's important to.
Well, it's tough too because it's I remember hearing about Charles Tillman, if he's out with his kids, he doesn't, hey, if someone comes to us for a photo, hey, no, sorry, I'm with my family. But then people are oh, what a jerk, right? But
right.
You got to respect that. You got to respect this is a real person, not with his family. You were at a game with your wife, yeah, you could appreciate that this guy wanted to sit with you, but
right.
And at least he framed it with around an inning, right?
Yeah, he gave me a time.
But it's the American League. That inning could have lasted.
Oh my God, it could have. And he was very, very nice. But I also know that the job comes with, there are a bunch of people who hate you.
Right.
And
Who could hate you?
I mean, a lot of people. I mean, I run into that online. I mean, your wife runs into it online.
Laura Ricketts.
Laura Ricketts always is getting all sorts of stuff online. So you have to.
Yeah.
I have to measure.
I spend zero time on Twitter, mostly because I don't want to see the backlash that my wife is getting.
Well, Twitter is
a cesspool.
Yes, but it is the number one way that I can disseminate my product.
Cool, man. So in closing, where can people follow you on social or engage with you in other ways?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Laurence W. Holmes.
And Laurence is with a U, not a W.
Not the bastardized American way of spelling it. L-A-U.
Are you telling Lawrence Taylor that his name is bastardized?
I'm not going to tell him that to his face. L-A-U-R-E-N-C-E-W, Holmes, H-O-L-M-E-S. I'm on The Score from noon to 2 every day. I have the Loho Daily podcast on radio.com. I have the House of L, which is now every 2 weeks. His wife, Laura, has been on my podcast. And so we put a new episode out every other Tuesday.
Wouldn't it be crazy if I was actually married to Laura Ricketts?
I mean, yes, for a lot of reasons.
Yes,
it would be crazy if you were married to Laura Ricketts.
Yes. Cool, man. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for making the trip. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you asking. Anything for the Heckler.
Anything for Loho.
Oh, that's very nice.